Seems to be back on. We've had some feedback issues, so I'll start the meeting now. I'd like to welcome everyone. I'll go through the statement of acknowledgement. We'd like to acknowledge this land we meet on today as traditional lands for the Kaurna people, and that we respect their spiritual relationship with their country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the custodians of the Greater Adelaide region, and that their cultural and heritage beliefs are still as important to living Kaurna people today. Roll call. I think we've got Councillor Nathan Shanks said he may be late, so have him down as an apology. But apart from that, I think we've got all councillors accounted for. Motions to grant leave of absence. Any councillors? No. Move through public open forum. Is there anyone wishing to speak in the public open forum? No. Move through business arising from the minutes. Any councillors with questions regarding the business arising from minutes? Oh, sorry. Declarations of interest. I've actually got one myself. Is anyone else? No. So in item 7.2, I'll be declaring an interest and asking the Mayor, Karen Redmond, to take my place in the chair. Confirmation of minutes for the 8th of June IES meeting. So it's moved by the Mayor Redmond. Someone like to second it? Councillor Kosh. Any question? Anyone wish to speak for or against? No. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Yep, that's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Now I'll move to business arising from the minutes, and if there's any questions from those. If there's no questions, I've got here about a presentation from the chair, Karen Whitehouse, if she'd like to come forward. We've been keeping them on to speak unless you need to have a mouthful of water or something like that. Yeah, if you can turn the microphone on, you just hold the button down until it comes. Thank you.
Is that better?
It sounds like it's working. It just needs to be really close to your mouth when you do speak, though.
Great. Is that better? It doesn't want to stay out. Okay, great. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. But yeah, just so because of the acoustics, it really needs to be quite loud.
Okay. Clearly, this isn't built for people my height. Is that better? Okay, great. So firstly, thank you for the invitation to speak to you all tonight. This week was sobering reading if you're following the news. The new IPCC climate change report was released, the first for 7 years. The recent weeks in the news have seen unprecedented heat waves in the US, Canada, and wildfires in Greece, not to mention all sorts of other climatic dramas. In the IPCC report, they identified increasing risks to Australia, including floods, droughts, increased heat events, waves, shorelines retreating 50 plus metres around Australia. In certain areas of Australia, they're predicting 200 metre shoreline increases. Here in Gawler, we are already locked into increasing impacts of global heating. Some changes are now inevitable and irreversible. Only rapid and drastic reductions in greenhouse gases this decade can avoid the worst case scenarios. We have a window of action, but that window is closing rapidly. The town of Gawler can be proud that we have moved to act already. That even during the development of our climate emergency action plan, we are simultaneously acting to reduce our emissions. A major milestone occurred in our recent workshop, which finalised the content and all actions of the plan. The draft plan should be presented to the Council in the September Council meeting. As outlined in the draft Climate Emergency Action Plan, the Council has an opportunity to act in 4 main ways. Firstly, acting to reduce its own emissions. Secondly, acting to promote individual actions of our constituents. Thirdly, to advocate and lead with other local governments and other governments. And importantly, fourthly, the Council can act to facilitate and empower community scale actions. Now, we know that is so important because the Council's own emissions are only about 1% of the total area emissions. The rest of the community is the 99%. We need to pull every lever we have access to. We need to abandon any new gas appliances in council buildings. Community council grant assessments could potentially include emission reduction outcomes. We need to be open to community-driven initiatives. After the plan is presented and hopefully adopted in full, we will then move into phase 2, making sure all the actions are achieved and that we collaborate with the community to achieve the deep emission cuts that are so necessary. The plan, while it's great, is nothing unless the actions are supported and funded. We have around 10 years or less to get our whole community to net zero emissions. We believe that our draft plan will set out a pathway and show that while the stakes have never been higher, and we can reach the goals that we need to, and with a bit of effort, it's far from impossible. We want to be able to look our children in the eye and say that we did everything we could. We have compared our draft plan with some other equivalent plans, and we will be comparing very favourably, both in aspiration and in level of detail. Gawler will have a detailed, fact-based and achievable plan that we can all be proud of. We can reach net zero as a council by 2030. We can assist our community to get there too. And by doing so, we'll be protecting them and the future generations. I apologise, I know it's a more general high-level issue and the presentation doesn't go into the detail, like my presentation doesn't go into the detail of the report. But I think my role as chair of this group is to make sure that we're aware of the level of ambition and effort that we must commit to achieve these climate outcomes. So thanks for your time.
Any questions from any councillors? I'd like to thank Catherine for the work. I'm really looking, I think the councillors are looking forward to seeing the plan as well. It's something we certainly is, and it's very timely with everything else. So
I think the whole group, the whole working group, will be very proud to present it in September. That'd
be great, and I think as you said, if we can help our community, that's just going to be perfect. So
yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. So we do have an officer's recommendation on the progress report. You do have it to staff or through the. Okay, I'll just transfer you.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I've got a couple of questions for staff. The first one really is around renewable energy, because we're looking at being 100% renewable energy. I'm just wondering the mix, the relationship between the grid turning greener and our aspiration of being fully 100% renewable. considering, the energy mix changes. For example, when I look at the EMO website, I can look at the actual current mix in South Australia, and a lot of times it's renewables well over 50%. And also when you have large corporations like AGL building power station-sized batteries to store renewable energy. I'm just wondering the relationship between what we're doing, creating solar farms, and its relationship to the grid, which is getting greener. And will we potentially have a stranded asset? There you go.
Thanks, Councillor Koch. I think Tim's probably the best one to answer that. So Tim Kelly, thanks.
Thank you, Chair Hughes. In answer to the question, there's a mix of local renewable energy that's possible and achievable, and then we'll reach a point where that's not sufficient to meet our needs, or may not be sufficient to meet our needs, and therefore you would go to the market and buy accredited renewable electricity. So there's a lot of work going on through the Electricity Working Group, working with LGA procurement to address those issues. There's a question on the grid turning greener as to who owns that electricity that's in the grid, because renewable energy generation does not legally represent renewable energy consumption as a percentage. So we've actually, through the working group, we are tackling those very issues, getting clarity from government agencies at the moment. And it's a difficult issue because it's not fully covered by legislation. So we will be guided by the best advice, making sure that the risks to councils are minimised, and making sure that the integrity and the assurance of the products that we select are defendable. In addition, I'd say that there's a real opportunity to almost connect the on-site growing solar systems of councils in with the contract. So if you look in the community, there's things like virtual power plants and community schemes. There's a potential to examine how councils who are building ever greater renewable energy systems, greater than 100 kilowatts, greater than can be consumed on site, might actually work through a virtual power arrangement with the retailer as a part of the electricity procurement contract. So nothing's been decided. The working group doesn't manage the procurement, LGA procurement does, but what we're doing is helping to provide the best information for the best decisions to be made.
A question from the Mayor as well.
Just a question around the draft plan. When will elected members see the draft plan, or do we have to wait till September when we need to endorse it? Because I think it'd be useful to see it before then.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. I'll see you.
Sorry, it's been a while. Well, I'm certainly happy to follow up, given the importance of the document. And in the past, we've circulated documents through to members before agenda, so we can, once it is ready, we can forward that through prior to the agenda in September, and then I'm sure that'll allow for the members to have a more detailed understanding and sort of discussion on the document.
Thank you, CEO. That'd be good. Councillor Koch, there's another question. You're happy? Yeah, I'm happy to take a mover.
Yeah, look, I'm happy to move the motion. I've read the draft plan and I'm quite happy with it. It's got achievable outcomes, and I think it will bring the community along with us. So I think it's got a really good, I think it will be successful, and I think we will be able to, if we follow the plan, drive down our carbon emissions in our, not only for council, but within our community. I'm quite confident about that. I'm also quite excited, I suppose, about the progress we've actually achieved in council since we've started this journey. We've actually have reduced our carbon footprint, and we're doing a whole range of initiatives, in particular around electric vehicles and electrifying our transport system. I think I think that's very important. There is a move worldwide to move to electric mobility. The day of internal combustion engine is dead, and the sooner we embrace electric mobility, the better we will be as a council and as a community. So I'm quite happy to support this motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Koch. Do we have a seconder for the motion? The Mayor, yeah, just slightly beat Council a little there, but would you like to speak?
Thank you. Yes, no, happy to support this update report. Thank you, Catherine, for your wise words. It is important that the elected members see this draft document before it hits an agenda, because I think it would be fantastic to be able to endorse this document unanimously. If it's materially different from the previous that we've seen, then that may not be the case if you only have a few days to look at it. So I think for elected members and the Mayor, that it would be good to circulate the draft document so that we can iron out any sort of minor issues that might be present, and then once we're happy with it, I think, again, getting a unanimous support for this type of document would be a very powerful display of leadership for our community. So just to let everyone know, I'm speaking at the Better Futures Forum next week on the 17th of August. It's an online event, and I think it'll be really interesting. This group is quite an interesting group. It's a national, and it cuts across different sectors, not just local government, but industry, public sector, private sector, and they've got some really interesting people talking and speaking and having breakout discussions. So should be an interesting forum. So yes, happy to support this.
Thanks, Mayor. Any speakers for or against the motion? If not, do you want to write a no? So I'll put the motion. All those in favour of the motion? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Move to 7.2. I'm declaring an interest as an employee of the Northern York Landscape Board, perceived interest, and I'll be leaving the room and the Mayor will be taking the chair.
Okay. So we're on page 27 of the agenda. So I think Mr. Graham Brookman, you're providing a brief presentation to members on this matter. Welcome, Graham. So if you can make sure that mic is turned on, Graham. It should have.
Oh yes, it's on.
Oh yeah, excellent.
I should have some lovely little images if we can find them, maybe. So.
So keep talking into the mic, Graham, because we're losing you when you...
Yeah, I did stop speaking, Karen. It's a bit hard to see, but most of South Gawler, and you can see the racecourse on the right-hand side there, has traditionally drained its stormwater sort of through Evanston and so forth and into the Clifford Road drain, which is a rather unattractive thing that is represented by that yellow line coming in on the left. Could we have the next slide? It carries well over 600 megalitres annually. Did I do something terrible? Oh, yeah, I did. Okay, so well over 600 megalitres, in other words, million litres annually. Next slide, please. So it represents a huge amount of really beautiful stormwater, largely rainwater that has run off of hard surfaces in Gawler and is therefore extremely low in salt, which is water that is very far from what normally comes down the Gawler River. So it represents a very precious resource, and given Kath's comments about climate change and so forth, it's appropriate that we make use of every bit of that beautiful rainwater that we can. So that's the drain as it enters into the Gawler River. Next slide, please. And when she gets going, it's an absolute ripper of a thing, and enough water can flow down that drain in a day to irrigate our farm, for instance, for a whole year. And it's as it sort of joins the Gawler River, it's contaminated by the salty water coming in from the Barossa particularly, and very shortly after that it's lost to Gawler Council. At the moment, most of that Gawler River flows going into I think it's just filled the big holes at Wingate Road, which is water that gets pumped up to the Barossa Valley. So it's our stormwater, and I'd love to see it used in and around Gawler. Next slide, please. The way the drain's organised, we could actually have an offtake, just a little intervention in the side of the drain, which enables the water to gravitate onto our property. And so no pumping would be required at that stage in just capturing the water. Next one, please. So it's pretty efficient. And if you look to the sort of left-hand side of the picture, there's a bit of a blue patch, and that is an old wetland that was there before the drain was put in, and it had a causeway kind of thing, or let's call it a wall, an embankment, which has now cut off that old wetland area. And so it would be nice to rehabilitate that with some of the water from the wetland. So that's one concept. Next one, please. So this looks like a mad artist's impression, but you can see from the bottom a little pipeline coming from the drain and down into a dam that's a 3 million litre dam, and the wetland would be constructed around that. The water from the dam would then be pumped, that water that did not infiltrate into the wetland, to another storage, and then down, well, it's actually up the page to that other little dot of blue, which is a pond from which we can process water and get it into an aquifer, which is used by quite a lot of the irrigation farms around the western part of Gawler. So we would be effectively, I guess, denying some of the water to the river, but it would only actually be a few % of the water that comes down the drain that wouldn't reach the river. So the river won't be particularly impacted, and the way that things are set up, we would ensure that the billabongs along the river at that particular point would always receive the water that they are due. So what can we do? We can rehabilitate a wetland, we can rehabilitate the shallow aquifers and also the deep aquifers from which farmers in the locality can irrigate. The interest, I guess, of the food forest is that we're really luckily placed so that the infrastructure could be put on our place. We have no particular access to that water that other people wouldn't be able to have. It goes into the aquifer, and anyone who's got a bore could be accessing that much improved water. So we are already operating an aquifer recharge scheme, and we've managed to drop the salinity from 1,200 parts per million to 600 parts per million in the locality of our farm. This scheme would enable the increase of the quality of the water to spread well beyond the boundaries of our farm, and so it would be an advantage to the locality and to the council. I guess the rest sort of speaks for itself. All of the points, the main criteria in the Gawler stormwater plan are addressed, and it ticks all the boxes. Council doesn't have any liability in terms of cost, etc. So it's cost neutral to council. We would obviously have some advantage in having better water underneath our place, so there's an advantage there, but I don't think there's any downside to either council, the surrounding properties, or ourselves. There have been a couple of workings in terms of the amount of water and all those sorts of things, either way, it would look like from the consultants who checked over our engineers' figures that the amount of water we could safely take from the drain without any negative impact on the environment or other potential users would be pretty similar. I'm happy to take any questions on the matter.
Councillor Kosh, anyone else got their hand up? And Deputy Mayor, nobody else seems to have their hand up. Councillor Kosh?
Yeah, I've got two questions. The first is where you've got the silt trap, is that a reed bed? And will you be flocculating out all the heavy metals?
We will, yeah. Trapping the heavy sediment and so forth is important in terms of what could potentially flow through the environment further. So we will be increasing the quality of the water that goes generally to the environment.
Yep. And next, so what's the plan for removing those heavy metals?
The silt trap can be cleaned. It would only be done every few years, and it would probably end up at Bolivar.
Okay, right. Now the other one is injecting into the aquifer. Do you need a license for that? And is there a certain quality that if we can inject in?
Yeah, so there are very stringent qualities, and we've actually been doing it from the river. And so it goes through an ultra filter, which you'll be pleased to hear even filters out viruses. So that the stuff that goes into the aquifer, sort of like Mount Franklin Springs, yes, we do have a permit from the EPA, and we also have 2 licenses with DUNA. So we've got them looking over our shoulder the whole time.
Okay, thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor Karen. Yes, congratulations, Graham. What a fantastic way of utilising some of the water that comes down through those hills when it does really get up a rain. The water coming out of that drain, if there was an excessive flood, you've got a way to monitor it, to switch it off so it doesn't come into your place and all that type of thing?
Yeah, there'll be two valves, so there's a lot of safety built into it. Council will have access to intervene if we were doing the wrong thing or whatever, but there will be safety built into it, and there'll also be some automatic kind of alarms and so forth, such that if a water level gets too high, my mobile phone goes off, etc., and then other automatic shut-off systems. The nice thing about this is if something goes wrong, it's our place that gets flooded, and then the water ends up in the river anyway. So it's not like we're going to be flooding any neighbours.
No, I can't imagine you're doing the wrong thing. It's truly a great asset for Gawler in what you've done there and utilising that water. I just hope we never get a Grantham flood like they had in Queensland, because if any of you know that where all of that water comes from those 3 major rivers, and my son's place is on the bank of one of those rivers, and the banks of the river are 45 metres high. So there's been a lot of water come down through there, and there's 3 of them, and they come on down and underneath all the vines, and then down to the corner, they've got a house blocks on the corner there underneath the South Gawler football oval, and then into your drain, into this drain. So any way that we can save some of that water to going further down the river. So I would certainly support this motion, Mayor Karen.
Thank you. I've got a question, Graham. So in the report, it's talking about modelling of how much water goes down the drain, and it says 610 megalitres per annum. And then it says over the page that water technology has identified that 11 megalitres per annum would be available for you. So my question is that modelling accurate? And, you know, what impact doesn't sound like much of an impact, but I'm very keen to continue environmental flows down the Gawler River, as you would be. So just if you could explain, by taking that small amount of water, what impact, in your opinion, would there be to the environmental health of the Gawler River?
So the river as it is an environmental resource, and we won't be taking anything significant away from that. So all those pools and so forth would still be there. But if we go back to the days when the Hillier family farmed our place, the shallow aquifer was much, much higher, and they were able to irrigate from a very shallow aquifer only down about 7 metres as much as they liked, and the water was absolutely beautiful, and that typified the area. In fact, when Colonel Light laid out Gawler, they would send a man with a shovel to dig a hole until they reached water, and that was sort of noted on the old titles. So things have changed massively, and the shallow aquifers have really gone down. So what might have been 10 feet is now 10 metres, and so on. So to actually be able to get some more water back into the shallow aquifers would be beneficial to particularly the advanced trees that have been there for, you know, over 100 years, and those sorts of things that are down deep enough to really take advantage of that. And so that would be all part of it. So you would have a shallow kind of wetland area, which would be sedges and so forth, frogs and those sorts of things. But then you would have that deeper penetration, which would support a very different kind of ecosystem. And so I think it's quite good value for money in terms of a little bit of water will actually make a huge difference to the ecosystem. If you're looking at the table on the water technology document, there are a number of different scenarios where 1, 2, 3 and 4, and it gets a bit confusing, but some of the outcomes are influenced by whether Oleana Waters actually takes Gawler Council up on the promise of water from Clifford Road drain, and others assume that that won't happen. And my understanding is that there's a lot of negotiations going on for the potential, you know, movement of Bolivar water up via Gawler, and that maybe Oleana would never get around to actually, wanting that water from Clifford Road drain. So that's probably the main bogey that we would worry about. So our engineer's actually done a set of figures assuming Oleana Waters does say, yep, we're taking our quota, and another lot assuming that they don't get around to it, they find water from another source. I guess there's a couple of other little variables there. The most important one being whether our offtake is allowed to take a large amount of water when it's available, 100 litres per second, and or whether we're choked off and able to access only a smaller amount. That would make a huge difference to the amount of water that we could actually get. Either way, the environment sort of gets more than half one way or another, and even that goes into the deep aquifer, which the irrigators are interested in, would be obviously shared around in terms of quality in particular.
Okay, thank you, Graham. Any other questions for Graham? Can't see anybody's hand up via Zoom. So thank you, Graham.
Thank you.
Thank you for your answering your questions and your presentation. So we have on page 27 an officer's recommendation. How do you wish to proceed, Council? Councillor Little, you want to turn on your mic? Thanks, Paul.
Yeah, I'll move that way. And
you happy to move? Are you happy to move?
I'm happy to move that. I have nothing to say. No.
Can't hear you, Paul.
I said I'm happy to move that, but I have nothing else to say.
Have you turned your mic up on your computer?
Yep,
On your actual computer, you know, the little mic thing? Because
I'll
we
turn
can't
it,
really hear you.
Well, yeah, I can hear you, but I don't know if they can hear us. I think we got muted because they were having an echo.
yeah, I don't know what's going
Right. No, I can hardly hear you, Paul.
Yeah,
Are
I
you
don't know
going
what's
to put it that way? Do you want to speak? Because you might have to yell.
No. No,
Thank you, Councillor Little. Are you happy to second, Deputy Mayor? Do you wish to speak at all? No, you're good? Okay. Any other discussion? Nobody's got their hand up. So if there's no further discussion, we've got a mover and we've got a seconder, haven't we, Megan? Can I just have a look at that? We've got moved by Councillor Little, seconded by Deputy Mayor Samble. If there's no further discussion, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. It is carried unanimously. Thank you. I voted as well. So if we can ask Councillor Hughes to come back.
Thanks, Mayor. We'll move to the 7.3 draft Gawler beautification plan. We do have Alex Game. He does have a presentation as well, so I might pass across to Alex to. Is he?
So just through the chair, there's no presentation. Alex is available to answer questions.
Oh, okay, he's available for questions. Yeah, he is. So, yeah, he's on Zoom, Mayor. Yeah, so you can see his face now. Are there any questions for Alex from the floor? Councillor Kosh?
Yeah, a couple. The first one is, have we got any indication from DIT about maintenance costs on land that potentially we might be planting up? I know we did talk, there has been some mention about a DIT and McLaren Vale Council partnership about the entry statement at Clare, down there. Is it at Wollonga or? Yeah. Anyway, down that way. But have we had any discussions at all with DIT about sharing the costs when we plant anything on DIT land?
Is that Sam? Yeah, it's best to go.
It's probably more a conversation question I might answer. That's okay, Alex. Yeah, so at this point, no, but we certainly know that it's actually, we're able to take over those areas in terms of being able to enter in agreements with them. We just be mindful of some of the restrictions with respect to clear zones, but we've looked at that as part of the development of the plan. In terms of as I did speak about this, I think in one of the workshops, but the intent is that we're not going to obviate the need for them to be able to go in and mow those areas. Effectively, if anything, we're making it easier for them to go in and maintain the areas. The tree management will remain with the town of Gawler, so that's probably an additional element that we currently aren't doing in terms of tree management, but by and large, that's a lower, a relatively low cost with respect to the comparison of maintaining the whole area. So.
Yeah, actually, I might jump in because I've got a question on the same lines, because originally when the roundabout was put in at Redbanks Road and Maynooth Road, did sort of talk about landscaping that site and whether they'd be prepared to pay 50 or 75% of landscaping or the maintenance, or some way of looking after the maintenance of that roundabout. If you've got any knowledge or memories on that.
No, it probably predates me, that roundabout, but it certainly is part of a capital project they're investing in. There's those opportunities. There's nothing to suggest that we can't approach them at the time we're developing the concept. And the idea was we develop the concept further and we engage with DIT prior to putting a budget bid back to council. And that was the intent with the way we structured the first round, the southern entry, that effectively we engage with did in respect to the design, and then what opportunities there are to potentially partner then.
Thank you. Councillor Kosh.
Yeah, I just want to clarify. When we went out for community consultation, did we have any figures with this plan so that the public could actually see the amount that it was going to cost?
Through the chair. No. So in short, we didn't have a costed plan per se at that time. Taking on board the feedback from the members in regards to getting some costs associated to help inform the proceedings tonight. We've since undertaken those costs and really scrutinised them to make sure they are reflective of the scope of works that have been delivered. So the answer to your question is that they weren't part of the consultation. It was more about obtaining feedback as to what the community saw as their main objectives for town beautification and what they saw as areas for improvement.
Is there any further, Councillor Goldstone?
I better check that you can.
Through Councillor Goldstone first, if you speak up.
Yes, can you hear me, David?
Just very faintly, if you could speak up, please.
Yep, okay. Well, I've got the volume on as loud as it'll go, so hopefully.
Yeah, I still can't hear you. You really need to put your microphone right up, or we're going to try and...
It is. It's as far up as it will go. I think Cody and Paul's...
yeah, we can't hear you, Kelvin.
Yeah, it's not the microphones.
From your end?
From
maybe?
our end, it's on your end. You turn down the volume.
It's at your end, David.
Just hold us a sec, Councillor Goldson. Yeah. Yeah, unless you want to try again, Councillor Goldstone, now. But
can you hear me now?
I can just barely, faintly hear you through the laptop, not through the speaker system.
I've got this up maximum. So it's obviously a problem your end.
Yeah, we're still trying to turn our mics up. Have you got a question, Councillor Davies, or a suggestion to help us, or?
Can you hear me at all?
You're very faint as well, so it may well be our issue.
So I think what happened...
While we're waiting, the Mayor's offered a question. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah.
Just a question on, I've noticed quite extensive feedback through the public consultation, but I haven't seen really any change in the beautification plan. How much of the consultation feedback made its way into the plan? Because I can't see any of it.
Is that a question through to Alex or Sam? Sam, to start with.
Yeah, I'm happy to sort of respond. Thank you, Madam Mayor, through Chair. I suppose the consultation was certainly a great representation. We had the 155 responses. I think the pleasing thing was we had overall 69% of people supporting the plan. If you take and only 7% against. The main feedback was really the prioritisation in regards to the actual projects, and that fed its way back into the plan itself. There was also feedback from the elected members that in regards to the tree species, in regards to some of the projects, particularly Lindock Road, and some of the feedback from the community on Lindock Road as well, that resulted in a reduction in the scope. So no longer pursuing tree removals beyond Cheek Avenue down to Murray Street. But effectively selective placing where there's opportunities to place trees, but also at end of life, replacing the trees to get that boulevard. So that made its way into the report. There was also feedback in regards to service levels and weeds and verges, of which we've taken on board to increase service levels, and we've mentioned that within the body report within the community offenders program, and we've had some positive discussions with that program and how we might leverage that as well. And effectively, and I suppose the biggest one was really the validation that the community provided for the plan. And all of the feedback was about tree planting on our entranceways effectively, and tidying the verges on the entranceways, which I think we've responded to per se.
Thank you. We might just go to Councillor Goldstone to see if we've corrected the issue. Otherwise, I can actually hold a microphone as well. So,
can you hear me now? No?
I can't hear you, Councillor Goldstone. Councillor Goldstone's actually sent me a message recommending maybe if we can't sort of debate this, that we defer it to a future. While we've got Alex and others here, we'll just go, the Mayor's got some further questions, so rather than we'll just go through the questions, but seeing we can't debate it, we'll probably defer it, but I'll leave that to the members. But Mayor Redmond, question?
Just given that we've got the consultant here, given the IPCC report that's been released in the last couple of days, which is quite alarming, does this plan reflect a brave new world as it relates to climate change? And what I'm talking about is longer droughts. And I see a lot of deciduous trees being chosen in some of the major nodes. And my concern is that a lot of native trees will be pulled out and deciduous trees planted, which will ultimately die when we have these prolonged droughts. So I guess how many trees are planned to be pulled out, and is there a better way of managing new plantings rather than deciduous plants, which look lovely? Don't get me wrong, I love them, but I am concerned that there's a lot of trees being removed and deciduous plants, which I believe will die. So just, what's the thinking from the consultant on that aspect?
Hopefully we'll actually be able to hear the consultant. So Alex, I'll go to you.
Through your chair, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you, but you're fairly faint.
Okay, I'll talk loudly.
It's not loud enough.
You can't hear me?
Still trying to work through. I think the Mayor's looking at deferring this.
Is that any better?
Councillor Goldstein, you want to have another, just a test even?
Yeah.
Test.
No, it's still faint. Has he?
Oh, I'm sorry, guys.
Yeah, try now, Councillor Goldstein.
Can you hear me now?
Not loud. I can just faintly hear you, but it's not loud enough for the rest of the members, unfortunately.
I think it's a bit unfair to continue and we can't provide input, David. So, we effectively can't contribute to the meeting, can we?
The Mayor's just offered a motion to adjourn this matter till the next IES meeting.
Well, no, we can't.
Unfortunately, we've got 3 members that we can't hear and a consultant we can't hear. CEO?
I'm just thinking through the chair and members, if we were to adjourn the meeting or suspend the meeting proceedings for 5 or 10 minutes and just give the administration a bit of a chance to see whether we can salvage the situation in terms of not just this item, because if we can't hear the members from Zoom world, then we may not be able to deal with any of the other items on the agenda. So maybe if we can just adjourn, which may mean that we close off the connection and reconnect, hopefully that might help, if that's to the members' group.
So that sounds like a good move by me to officially adjourn, and we'll try and reconnect in 5 minutes. So it would mean us dropping the live feed and the other councillors and then trying to reconnect to get a better connection. So I've got to move of Councillor Koch to suspend the meeting till we can reconnect, or for 10 minutes. Okay, for a time. Yep. Okay, formal motion that we adjourn for 10 minutes to after 15 minutes. I'll try. Or 10. Okay, that's good. So got to move Councillor Koch, seconded by Councillor Sample. Okay, the Mayor, that the meeting be adjourned for 10 minutes from the Mayor and restart after 10 minutes. Rather than suspend, just adjourned. I think it might just be hung up. Yeah. Restarted. Yep. All right. So I'll put that motion. All those councillors in favour, that's unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Hopefully we'll get everyone back and have sound.